Hi, it's Steve from FX Pedal Planet here, and today we've got Michael from Tone Tuga to talk to us about his fantastic pedals. Say hello, Michael.
Hey, everybody out there. I'm really excited to be here. I'm ready for this.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much for joining us, Michael. It's an absolute privilege to have you here and have you talk to us about your fantastic creations. And before we go into the main interview, I thought we'd have a little bit of fun with a quick fire 10 questions. Now,
All right.
these quick fire 10 questions are what we ask all builders like yourself. So we'll start with the first one. So the first one is delay or reverb, which is your favorite?
I'm going to just quick fire off delay. I think I'm going to go with delay.
Boost or overdrive?
Overdrive.
Now, here's the one. This is the important one. People are definitely going to be interested in.
Okay.
Clon Centaur, myth or legend?
Oof. Myth. Myth. I'm going to go with myth.
Okay. New pedal day or new amp day?
New pedal day.
Next one's very important one as well.
Okay.
Divides opinion. Metal Zone, classic or trash it?
Classic.
Yeah,
Classic.
I think so too. It's excellent. Germanium or silicon?
Silicon.
Ah. Fuzz, before or after wah?
After wah.
Next one, digital or analog?
Oh, man, you're killing me now. Analog.
Next one is true bypass or buffered?
It depends. Oh, these are all so hard. True bypass.
And the last one, which is a little bit fairer, chorus or flanger?
Chorus.
Most
Chorus.
most builders are choosing chorus, to be fair. Well, thanks very much for that. It was some of them
Yeah.
a little bit unfair, and but we won't hold you to them.
There's some funny reasons why true bypass versus buffered that I didn't learn until I started making some pedals that flow into other pedals.
Yeah.
And if you have buffered bypass, it changes the silliest things that you wouldn't think would have any effect. So that's why I said it depends. It really just, it depends on the situation. Plus,
Yeah.
I'm not really one to have 30 pedals on one board. I usually try to keep it to under 10. In which case, then I would definitely say true bypass.
Yeah. Well, I noticed that on your website about one of the pedals that you have, and you make a reference to that you like actually small pedal boards. But yeah, some of those are quick fire 10 questions. It's a little bit tongue in cheek, but that they are sort of the divide opinion, and us in
Oh, yeah.
the pedal community, we're always discussing them. Fuzz before or after war, and really there is no answer or it's just your own preferences.
Whatever you like, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to try things out for yourself, haven't you? For sure. Okay, well, let's go back to the very big beginning of you getting interested into music and as a musician and a fan of music. So what were your musical influences to start with, and where did they come from?
I grew up listening to what my dad listens to. My dad is from South America, and so he, when he came over to the States, he brought over this trove of Zappa albums and Santana albums, and so those were my two biggest ones that he always had on the record player all the time. And one of my first memories is I used to love staring at his cover of Sergeant Pepper's because there's so much going on there. And I just remember I used to love looking at this thing. So I'd say those were three. Those three are all in weirdly different categories, but Santana and Zappa were definitely two that he used to love to listen to.
Yeah, it's funny how we do get the influences of music are passed down, isn't it?
Oh
By
yeah.
parents, siblings, and where we actually go. Well, that's an absolute stellar list of musical influences there. Um, and I mean, Santana and Zappa, excellent guitarists. So is that where you draw a lot of your musical or guitar style from, do you think?
When I first started to learn, when you get outside of the basic blues box, when you first start learning guitar, some of the ones that I gravitated towards were like the Mixolydian, which Zappa is uses a ton of it. And so when I just am sitting around noodling, I find myself using those types of sounds. And I forget who I was listening to, but I was listening to another podcast, and they said that your ability to put together phrasing is based on what you hear. So if you hear a bunch of Mixolydian style sounds, when you sit down with a guitar, you are naturally going to gravitate towards those similar types of sounds. You're not just going to think of something that you've never heard before.
Yeah, I think
So
that's
probably.
yeah, I think there's a lot of truth in that. Absolutely, yeah. I know I very much stay in sort of like the sort of the blues rock sort of territory because
Oh, me too. Oh, me too.
it's traditionally what I've always listened to. Do you know?
Yeah.
I think if I was listening to more sort of Steve Vai and people like that, I would have gravitated towards more that style of music for sure.
But then you also have to have that physical ability to be a freak like Vi,
Yeah.
which no matter how much I practice, I would never be able to do what he does.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Um, so what was your first guitar effect or your favorite guitar effects when you first started out sort of listening to Santana and Zappa and listening to all sort of the lovely effects that we're using? Which effects in particular caught your ear?
The first pedal that I ever bought was I wanted to make blues sounds, and so I went and I bought a Boss Blues Driver. I had the BD2 for years, and that was actually how I got into building pedals. Is one day it died on me, and at the time I was working in an electrical panel shop, and I brought it in and I asked the guys there that work with me. I said, hey, this doesn't work anymore. Can you show me how to figure out what's wrong with it? And they showed me how to signal trace, and they showed me how to remove components, and showed me how to replace them. And at the end, I think it was just a bad switch. And they showed me, where to go to buy the specific switch to replace that one, and then
Wow,
how to put it in like it was before, and then bam, everything's working.
wow.
So that was how I got started. That was when the obsession started. I'll bring that up.
Yeah.
My first boutique pedal that I ever bought, I still have, and it is my V1 C machine,
Oh, very nice.
and I've had this for probably about 10 years now. And I bought this because it was the biggest pedal in the display case. Right, I wanted a chorus, and this one had more knobs than the other choruses. So I thought, obviously more knobs is better. So this was a big influence in, I guess, deciding that, oh no, there's the whole next level to effects. There's not just boosts, and there's not just your amp distortion. There's a whole huge world of hex pedals out there, and so this one started that for sure.
Wow.
And it was funny. It was funny that you brought up the Klon, because I have another one here. I would say my favorite Klon copy is the Mojo Hand Effects Sacred Cow,
Very nice.
and there's a story behind this one also. I bought this years ago, and if you look at the graphic, it's as though
Yep,
it's like a cut of meat.
that's correct. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So they aren't allowed to make this one anymore because it was offensive to people in the US, apparently.
Right.
So my first NAMM that I went with Cusack and Mojo Hands, and when they were putting together their board, they put this one on the board, and they have a new graphic for it now. And so at the end of the show, I said, "Hey, can I buy that one?" because I had sold my original one, a long time ago. And so they said, yeah, I mean, we can't sell it. So sure, you can just have it. So that was probably like my favorite boutique
Wow.
pedal story.
Wow, very nice. And it's interesting, isn't it, that you started off with a blues driver. I wonder how many, guitarists or pedal builders actually start off with a Boss pedal. I think probably a high
It's
percentage
gotta
of
be
people.
close. Yeah, it's gonna be close to 100%.
I would say so.
Do
Yeah.
you remember at Guitar Center they used to have a whole display with all the pedals were in a square and then they had a little amp below it and you could just turn them all on and just plug your guitar right in and try everything.
Yeah.
I think that's how I picked it.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's
And then of course you turn on everything at once just to see what it sounds like
yep.
and get mean looks from the people that work there.
Yeah, and whilst I mean your artwork, and you make a point of mentioning that the there's a connection between the artwork and sounds, and
Yeah,
you want to
absolutely.
kind of have an idea of what a pedal is going to sound like from the artwork. But it's interesting, isn't it, that over the years, Boss haven't changed their artwork, they haven't changed the design, and
That's a really good point.
you know,
It's a really good point. Some builders, and this goes for boutique builders and, like I would call them the big boys, they also gravitate towards minimalist graphics or even just text graphics. And man, hey, if it works for you, great. But, I like when you go up to somebody's board and your eyes shoot to one of them and you don't recognize it and you say, what is that thing there? Because it's attractive.
yeah, I'm exactly the same. I love the artwork on pedals. It's for me, it's as important as what it actually sounds like in the build quality. And it also makes the uniqueness of the pedal as well, doesn't it? And
It's probably akin, yeah, I would say it's probably akin to, some people like sunburst guitars and some people like those wild, PRS colors. It if it's your thing and it's a look that you're looking for, then, if you want a sunburst Strat like you have, and I give you, a plain black Strat, it's the exact same guitar, but you're probably just not going to like it as much.
absolutely, yeah, I agree entirely. And but I've also seen a lot of pedals where they are just the metal enclosure and they've got sticker strips with printed
I've seen
logo.
that too. Yeah.
And I find that, that's really nice as well. I feel that, I find that very appealing as well. So there's so much to offer, isn't there, in the pedal community at the minute, depending on what you like.
I guess it can go the full spectrum, like Fairfield circuitry, bare metal enclosure, and they're just manually stamping all of the labels on there. I mean, from an effort standpoint, it takes a lot less effort to do that than to do like a UV printed process. But it's so aesthetically pleasing because of how simple it is,
I
you
agree.
know?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So when and what led you into making guitar effects? And have you got an electrical background? Are you self-taught?
I have no, I guess I have a lot of functional training. One of my first jobs was working in this panel shop. And so learning how to read and interpret schematics, and learning how to spec hardware, and learning, the basics of power, and how it works. That's what I all learned hands on. But everything else, I have no formal engineering background. Everything I've learned has been from trial and error and from Google.
Fair play.
Yeah.
Fair play.
I really think there's something to be said about, education these days. I would say there's very little that you can learn in school that you can't also learn online by yourself. I guess then the crux of it becomes, oh, I know how to fix an engine, but I don't have a mechanical engineering degree. Can you still get a job doing that? Well, I guess it depends. I'd say probably the only exception to that rule would be, performing surgery. You couldn't learn how to do that on Google.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I mean, the fact that remains that you've got some excellent reviews in places like Guitar World, Premier Guitar Gear, Radar, and places like that. So whatever you're doing, it's working. That's for sure. And I've listened to some of the sound clips, and your pedals sound fantastic. So
Thanks very much.
regardless of where the background's come from or how you've learned it, keep doing it.
I'm gonna try.
It works. Absolutely works. So when and why did you decide to form Tone Tuga?
I got obsessed with fixing pedals. I first saw how easy it was to fix my first blues driver. And I didn't have a whole lot of, capital to start this. So I would fix a pedal so I could sell it. So I would have materials to make a pedal to sell it. And, it just kind of, it kept going. And when I went into college, I would buy broken pedals off of Craigslist and eBay, and I would repair them and I would flip them, and I would use that money to pay for my textbooks. And I did that my whole way through college, pretty much. That was until, I guess, Reverb started like a year after I graduated college. I think it started in like 2013. And when that happened, it was gangbusters, because now I didn't have to go out and find people to to show my product to. They were just there and they were looking for it. So that was where the big change happened for me. So I've been modding some designs. The only pedal in my line that is a mod of something else is the Prism. And that was where I started. I said, hey, this is my specific mod for this style of circuit. And so I started putting it on Reverb under the moniker of Prism. And, the rest was history. The first Tonetuga branded pedal wasn't made until 2017, though. So if there are versions out there, they don't have any branding on them. So I don't know where they are. They're somewhere.
Well, on the branding, I mean, we touched on this just before we started the interview, and on your website, the branding is very strong. You've got that environmental message coming over with the creating awareness for the sea turtles and everything. And I wonder if you could explain a little bit about that and why you incorporated that into your branding.
Yeah, sure thing. So in my day job, I am an independent contractor for the EPA, and the EPA in the U.S. is the Environmental Protective Agency. So what I do is the company that I work for will be asked to go and investigate municipal sites, and we'll test and make sure that things are built to a certain standard. Dumping standards are met, chemical distribution standards are met. And so, for my entire personal professional career, I've been doing something that is environmentally minded, which we need a lot more of these days, because it's pretty bad. So, when I started Tonetuga, I said, I don't want to do this unless I can do some good in the process. And so that was when I decided to start, trying to raise awareness for coastal conservation. Want to start, collecting money from pedal sales to give to smaller organizations that can't afford to, bring in volunteers and afford, especially like this year, for example, when you have volunteers, you got to provide them with PPE, masks and gloves and trash bags, and then you have to find a way to get rid of it. It's, you think the people that go and clean up beaches and the people that carve the channels for the sea turtles to get out to the ocean, that's not free. That's really not free. There's a lot that goes into it. And I don't think that those get as much attention as some of the other organizations. There's some big organizations that have very fancy branding and very fancy marketing, and you forget about the North Carolina Sea Turtle Conservatory, and let's see, last year we were able to donate, and when I say we, I mean just me and my wife. We're able to donate a little over $1,200 to a couple different small groups, which was good because it was our first year really actually turning over some money. And so, you know, this year we were on track to do about double that. It got a little bit derailed because of COVID, but, you know, the turtles are still coming. So, you know, we're going to try and do that.
Oh, I think it's admirable. And that message and the branding on the website, it looks so professional. And I, you know, really applaud how you've actually set the website up. I was looking this morning. It's fantastic. It comes across
Thank you.
very, very strong branding, very professional. You don't look.
I'm not that professional. I'm not that professional. I promise you.
It comes across as a corporate organization, if you like. It's very, very good. So yeah, well done. And so where is Tone Tuga based?
We're in North Carolina. So we're on the East Coast of the US. And we're in Charlotte. So Charlotte is the biggest city in North Carolina. So I'm about, let's see, I'm trying to think of a good landmark for people that aren't in the US. I'm probably like 7 hours from Washington, DC.
And where you?
No, I'm sorry. I'm 5 hours from Nashville. That's what you really want to know. That's.
And where are you supplying your pedals? Who's buying your products? Because you've got some great, again, artist endorsees. The Jonathan Robinson Band, No Villains Left, and people like that. So who's buying your pedals?
I've got dealers in the UK. I'm trying to get into an official dealer in Australia. I've got one dealer in Japan. But I try to do most stuff direct because a lot of the I'm not sure who has been on you know, on your podcast before and has really talked about how that works. But to be a small business and try to go into distribution is really difficult. It's really difficult to turn a profit on the volume that you do. And it really comes down to that. It's, can you meet that volume? And so I've started just, I'll ship to anyone, anywhere. And if it means that I, you know, make a loss on shipping, you know, I don't care. I want my product to go to, you know, South Africa. I want my product to go to Russia, which, oh my God, this year try shipping anything to China. And it costs like $70 to ship a pedal. It's ridiculous. It can get really bad sometimes. So, you know, everywhere. Everywhere.
Right, very interesting. And when you're designing the pedal, and we'll talk more about the pedals that you've got within your range in a moment. But how do you go from the concept of having an idea about a pedal to working out schematic for that, wiring it up, and having the artwork done and having it out there tested and for people to buy?
I think I probably have a longer time period to turn over a new product than a lot of people because I'm doing it all myself. I will, I'll use the clockwork as an example. That's a really good example. So the concept for the clockwork came because I got a request to repair a, it's not the Butler tube driver. It's a copy of the Butler tube driver. It's the TubeWorks real tube. And the problem was, it just, when you turn it on, it sounded like you were turning on your garbage disposal and plugging your guitar into it. And I loved it. That was the best sounds. It was so interesting. And so I figured out what's wrong with it. I repaired it, shipped it back to the guy. And I said, I want to make that sound.